Welcome to the session State Management in ASP.NET. Our objectives for this session will be as follows. Number 1. Understanding the mechanisms for state management in ASP.NET, namely cookies, view state and the session. Looking at state management in action in an ASP.NET application. First and foremost, why state management? Remember, we said HTTP is a stateless protocol. If we make a HTTP request to a server and get back a response, the next subsequent request we make to the server does not have information on the previous request. Each request happens in isolation and there is no linkage to the previous request. In web applications, most so often, we want to maintain state across invocations. A typical example is an e-commerce application where the user buys items online and buys more than one item, adding products into a shopping cart, one by one, which happens across multiple page invocations. We certainly want to remember what the user added to the shopping cart. And since the user adds items to the shopping cart across page invocations, state management is very crucial for us. Some of the ways we can save state are as follows. Using cookies, using the view state and the session. A cookie is used to store small piece of information on the client's computer. A view state is used to store state information between invocations to the same page. It uses view state as a hidden variable to store the state information. And that is why view state is restricted to save state between invocations to the same page. If we want to store state information across pages, then the choice is the session. A session is used to store state information across pages and the storage is on the server. The three important state mechanisms in ASP.NET, cookies, view state and the session. The main differentiator is where the state information is stored. In cookies it is stored on the client's computer. On the session it is stored on the server. And using view state it is stored in the hidden variable that is sent with each request and response. Let us look at cookies. Cookies are generally used to store small pieces of information. We can store many cookies on the client's computer. With each request to the server, the stored cookie information is sent along with the request. Generally, the user is unaware of this cookie being sent with each request as is happening behind the scenes. It is very transparent to the user. In ASP.NET, cookies are very easy to set up and use. We have the HTTP cookie class, and it is available as a collection object with both the request and the response classes. How to create a cookie? We first create a cookie object, HTTP cookie equal to new HTTP cookie, and a cookie has to be given a name. Let's say we want to create a cookie which will store the user's language preference. We'll set the name of the cookie as pref. Once the cookie is created, we can store key value pairs inside the cookie. For example, if the user's preferred language is Spanish, we would specify cookie of language equal to Spanish. And then on the response object, we will use response.cookies.add to add this cookie. So when this response is delivered to the client, the cookie is created on the client's computer. So, preference is what is getting stored on the client's computer. Pref is the cookie identifier in the collection. Language is the key and the value is Spanish. Remember we said a cookie which is stored on the client's computer is sent along with each request. So on the server, how do you retrieve a cookie from the request? We say request.cookies and specify the name of the cookie we want to retrieve using the array syntax notation. Here, since we want to retrieve the cookie called pref, we say request.cookies of pref. Once we have the cookie object, we can again use the array notation to specify the key we want to retrieve. For example, if we want to retrieve the value of the key called language from the cookie, we say cookie of language. This value, which is Spanish by the way, is stored in the string pref language. So it is very easy to set up cookies, to store the cookies and also to retrieve them. So it is very easy to set up cookies in ASP.NET. Cookies will be sent with every request until the user closes the browser. Let's say we want a cookie to live for 1 year. To make a cookie live longer than the user's browser session, we set the expiry as follows before we add it to the response.cookies collection. In this example, we create the cookie HTTP cookie equal to new HTTP cookie and we call it pref. And then on the expires property, we set the time to 12 months from now. Then we add the cookie to the response.cookies collection. Suppose we want to remove a cookie from the user's hard disk. We do it by setting the expiration date to an already passed date. For example, what we do is we would say HTTP cookie equal to new HTTP cookie is the same name pref, and then we would say the expire is equal to yesterday. And when this cookie is added to the response using response.cookies.add, and when the response reaches the client's browser, the cookie is deleted from the user's hard disk. Okay, let us look at a simple demo of state management in an ASP.NET e-commerce web application. Please download the source code from the portal as a zip archive and extract to a local folder. Using Visual Web Developer, from the File menu, click on Open Website and specify the top level folder to which you extracted the downloaded source archive. Select default.aspx on the Solutions Explorer and click on the Run button. Let us look at it in action. Let me open up Visual Web Developer. Okay. Let me from the File menu, I say Open Website, and this is the folder which is this is the top level folder where I have extracted the archive from the portal. I click on this and say Open. So these are the set of files which are downloaded from the source. Okay, we have four ASPX files, ASPX files. Select the default and say Run. Okay, the name of the website is Trendy Online Shop. Okay, some fancy name we give for ourselves, and then it tells you, please tell us something about yourself. This is the first screen which greets you. So we need to fill in the name, the address, city, state or country information, and the zip code. Let's go ahead and fill in these values. Let us say the user is Harry and he gives his address. Okay. City is London, state or country is United Kingdom, and zip code, we specify zip code here, and then we say proceed to shop. Okay, this takes us to the products page, and in this particular website called Trendy Shopping, we can buy 4 items. There are 4 items for buying here. There are 4 items for display. You can either buy an iPod Nano or a laptop from Dell. You can buy an iPhone, or you can buy Programming ASP.NET video course. Currently my shopping cart is empty and it says there are no items in your shopping cart. Okay, so let me go ahead and buy one of each. Okay, suppose I want to start over once again from the beginning. I would say clear shopping cart, and then let me buy iPod Nano, a laptop. I need an iPhone. I need this programming course as well. Okay, so once I added these 4 items, okay, I say proceed to checkout. Okay, here it says, hi Harry, it remembered my name. Okay, I'm pretending it is Harry who's shopping. Okay, so it reads me the name I entered. Okay, and then it tells me in my shopping cart I have these 4 items: an iPod Nano, a Dell laptop, an iPhone, and a programming ASP.NET course. Okay, and then it gives me my address. Remember, this address was entered in the very first screen before we bought the products. Okay, it remembers the address. Okay, then it asks for a credit card number. Let me give one credit card number. Okay, there are no validations here for now. And then let me say, okay, and then I say pay now. Okay, then it takes you to the thank you page. It says your order has been processed and will be shipped to you shortly. We look forward to having you again here. Okay, so a simple e-commerce web application which had lots of state management. Let's look at the code, see how things happen. First and foremost, let's look at the default.aspx. So we had a text box for the name, for the address, for the city, state or country, and then the zip code. Okay, and then we had a proceed click button. Okay, so there is an event handler here which says CMD proceed click. Okay, let's look at the event handler. When proceed click is clicked, we get the name, the address, the city, state, and the zip code. All of them are strings. Okay, and then on the session we set the name as username, address as address, the city information as city, the state or country information as state, and then the zip code as zip code. Okay, and then we direct the user to the products page. Okay, so on the very first page, tell me about yourself, we capture the name, address, city, state, zip code information from the user and store them on the session. Okay, then we take the user to the products page. On the products page, we first say your shopping cart, and then there is a label which will print the items in the shopping cart. Okay, then there are 4 buttons: an iPod Nano button, a Dell laptop button, and a buy iPhone button, and a buy programming course button. Okay, and all these buttons, 4 buttons, have on click event handlers. We have the CMD programming course click, we have the buy iPhone underscore click, we have the Dell laptop click underscore click, and then we have the iPod Nano underscore click. So let us look at the event handlers for these buttons. Okay, so when the page is loaded, we say welcome, and then from the session we get the user's name. Okay, and then if the shopping cart is empty, is null, we say there are no items currently in your shopping cart. Okay, fine. Then let's look at the iPod Nano underscore click event. What we do is, here we get the list from the view state. called shopping cart, and whatever is there in the shopping cart, we add iPod Nano, and then we say display shopping cart. Similarly, for the command button Dell laptop _ click, we get the list from the shopping cart from the view state and add Dell laptop. And then when the iPhone is clicked, again we do the same thing. We get the list of strings from the view state for the shopping cart and then add iPhone. Similarly for the programming course. Okay. And let's look at display shopping cart. In display shopping cart, what we do is we get the items from the list. Okay. And what we do is we loop through the list items and print the item what was added to the shopping cart, and these we form a HTML here, okay, using BR tags for the next line, and then this content is displayed in the LBL shopping cart or text. This is the label we had at the beginning of the page, LBL shopping cart, right? This will display the contents of the shopping cart, either no items or the items the user added to the shopping cart. Okay. So to start, looking at page load. So on the page load, we welcome the user, and then if the shopping cart is null, we instantiate the list and add it to the view state, the name as shopping cart. Okay, and then we set the label as sorry, there are no items in your shopping cart. Okay, so please look here, the instantiation happens here on the page load. The very first time we make sure if shopping cart is null, we create a new list and add it to the view state with identifier as shopping cart, right? And then afterwards, each time when an item is clicked, when a button is clicked, when an item is bought, we get the string. It could be empty for the very first time, and iPod Nano is added. Then when the Dell laptop is added, it already had iPod Nano. We added the current selection. When the iPhone was clicked, we got the list back. It already had iPod Nano and Dell laptop. Now we added iPhone. Similarly for the programming course, we added programming course ASP.NET. Similarly, we added programming ASP.NET course to the list which already had iPod Nano, Dell laptop, and the iPhone. Thus, we ended up having 4 different items in the shopping cart. Okay, so when the user wanted to clear the shopping cart, what we did is we created a new list of strings and added the new empty list of strings to the view state shopping cart. The ultimate result was that the shopping cart now became empty and the user can start over once again from the beginning. And display shopping cart just gets the items from the shopping cart, which is a list of strings, loops through the strings, and then forms a HTML message and sets the text property of the LBL shopping cart label as the HTML message that we formed. Okay. Now, so till now what happened is, when the user was buying items from the products page, we stayed at the same product page. We did not go to any other page. So each invocation which happened was still on the same page. So we could use view state to store the state information. So when the iPod Nano was clicked, we used view state to store that information. When the Dell laptop button was clicked, we used the same view state to store the additional information, so on and so forth. Now, when you click on the checkout button, we are moving from one page to another page. It is at that point we transfer the contents of the view state into the session. Remember, this is a very important point to note. Remember, transition from the current products page to the checkout page, we want to save the current state that the user put it in the shopping cart. So since we're going across pages, now the view state information is copied into the session, and then we direct the user to the checkout page. And on the checkout page, what we do is, again we say, hello user, these are your shopping cart details. Okay, so we are on a different page now. Since the shopping cart is now in the session, it is easy for us to fetch the information back from the server. Let us look at the code for the checkout.aspx. We get the address, city, state information from the session and substitute in the appropriate labels we have on the checkout page. And then when the user clicks on the Pay Now button after entering the credit card, we just say, thank you for shopping. We just print a message, your order has been processed and will be shipped to you shortly. We look forward to having you again here. Okay. A simple example of using state management. First, we capture the user's data on the session, and then we use view state till the point the user was within the same page. When the user moved out of the page using the checkout button, we transferred the contents from the view state to the session using the same identifier shopping cart. And then on the checkout page, we fetch the shopping cart information plus the user details and just ask the user for the credit card. Once the user filled in the credit card details and the expiry date for the credit card, we took the user to the thank you page and said your order has been processed. Okay, so very simple state management in action here. Using view state, we can store simple data types or even customize serializable objects. The values stored in a view state are available between invocations of the same page. This is because view state is used to store information in the requests and the responses, right? So to set a value in the view state, we use view state, an identifier, and then the value. To retrieve a value from the view state, we say view state of identifier and cast it in the appropriate data type. In the example we saw previously, we had a buy iPod Nano button, a buy Dell laptop button, and a buy iPhone button. Each button had a on-click event handler. And what we did is, on each of the event handlers, we got the view state information for with the identifier shopping cart. This we know was a list of strings because we initialized it to a list of strings in the page load event. Okay, in the page load event, we checked if the view state is null for shopping cart, and if it was null, we created an empty list of strings and added it to the shopping cart view state. Okay, so when the iPod Nano was clicked, we got the view state data for shopping cart, which is a list of strings. So it is cast into a list of strings, and then we added iPod Nano. The very first time the string was empty, so iPod Nano was the first element in the string. Then when the Dell laptop was clicked, we got the shopping cart information from the view state, and then which already had iPod Nano. On top of it, we added Dell laptop. And similarly, when the iPhone was clicked, we got the view state information for shopping cart, which is a list of strings. The list of strings already had iPod Nano and Dell laptop. Now we added iPhone as a string to the list of items. Now, remember, the most important point to remember here is we used a view state because the user was within the same page, the products page, right? To display the shopping cart items, we got the view state for shopping cart and we ran through the list of strings, which was the products names. We formed a HTML message and set it as the text for the label called shopping cart details. Remember, in state management using session, the state is maintained on the server. The state data is actually stored on the server. Session allows us to store and use data across page invocations. It can be used to store simple data types as well as custom serializable objects. Each session on the server is allocated a unique 120-bit identifier and is transmitted in the server and the browser clients. And whenever we store something on the session, the data is stored on the server and we have a 120-bit identifier. This identifier, unique identifier, is transmitted to the browser clients. In the subsequent request, the browser clients sends back this identifier. The session data is not sent to the client. Okay, it stays on the server. What is in transfer between the client and the server is the unique identifier. Using this session ID, this unique identifier is called the session ID. ASP.NET retrieves the session data, converts it into objects and places this object in memory for the code to access it. Remember, we said session of username. So this session object was available for us in memory for the code to access it. This session ID transmitted to and fro between the server and the client are done using cookies. If the client browser does not support cookies, then the data is transmitted using modified URLs. What we need to understand here is somehow, either using cookies or using modified URLs, this unique session ID is transmitted to and fro between the server and the client. We got the values from the text boxes and then used those values and put them on the session using names which are unique in this particular context. So name came under username, address came under session of address, city came under session city, similarly for state and the zip code. To access the data in the session, all we need to do is we have to say session of identifier, and since we know what we put in the session, we cast it to the appropriate type. In all the in our example, what we put in the session were all strings. So to get back the session data, we cast them back to strings. Session state versus view state. A view state is available only within the same page, but if you want to access state across pages, we need to use the session. A very important example for us is the checkout click. When the checkout button was clicked, we transitioned from the products page to a different page. So till now our state information was in the view state. So we transferred the contents of the view state shopping cart to a session shopping cart. Application state allows us to add global objects that can be accessed from any client, not just one user session. Storing objects in application state is similar to how we do it in the session. We say application of identifier equal to value. Suppose if you wanted to store static variables in an application that can be shared across different pages, the best place to store it is in the global.asax file. So a quick recap of what we have seen so far. We have seen different ways of maintaining state information in the server. We have seen how to use cookies in the web application. We have also seen how to use view state and session in a sample e-commerce application. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. We'll see you soon.